how do you know that a change is pseudo, just formality, or how do you know that the real change actually happened? Is the question of whether you can go back to old practice. And delegation is usually the first challenge from both skill sets and mindset perspective for first-time leaders.
If it's the lack of trust, right, then the question is that how do I build this trust? Hello. Hi, welcome to Building Better Leaders with Kausern and Seok Hian podcast, where, hi, I'm Kausern, and where what we do is that letters is being sent to us from managers, the challenges that they face and all, and they need some kind of advice or some perspective. So think of this very much like an advice column, but for leaders, right? For leaders in the workplace. And today we have Seok Hian, who's back again for the third time, right? And I was I was trying to figure out what else can I talk about Seok Hian without embarrassing her. So here's a little bit about Seok Hian and how she has actually impacted me and also helped me in my self-worth in this case. So when I worked with her back about 14 years ago, so she was helping me transit in the whole talent management part of things. And she introduced me to this personality profiling tool called Enneagram, right? For those who doesn't know what Enneagram is, I will probably get Seok Hian to talk a little bit more about it. But in my head, I thought Enneagram was, how the words are being formed, and there's actually a different word in it. Then you kind of refocus the word. Then that is the Enneagram which I know. But this is spelled with an E, Enneagram, right? And I was like, oh yeah, at the time I was very familiar with other things like DISC, with MBTI and so on. This is one of those, another one, right? So then she let me answer some questions, right? Then I think of how many questions is it? So 50, 100?
That was 100 over.
100, yeah, 100 questions. So I said, oh, okay, this is a bit different, right? So, but I was still very skeptical, so I did it, and when it came out, the results, it was like voodoo magic trick, So I felt entirely naked, right? Kind of like, oh my goodness, this is exactly who I am, right? And like how certain personality profiling sounds very much like very general, but kind of like, oh, so they say certain things, they say, oh, of course, yeah, I think what it is. But this is very specific about about when I'm stressed, this is how I behave. When I'm in a good space, this is how I behave, and so on. So that's great, and so it has helped a lot, I think, in terms of how I look at people. Of course, it's not about pigeonhole them, but it's kind of like have an indicator to say, okay, probably this person is this way, so hence there is a baseline which I can work on in this case. So I'm very glad, Seok Hian, for you to introduce me to this world of Enneagram, and she also sent me to get me to be certified as well. Unfortunately, I didn't practice that much, but the process of really going through it and so on really was great, right? So on top of that, Seok Hian is also the co-writer of a book which we have written. It's out in the market right now. This book here, Leadership is Not Automatic, and it is a fantastic journey. Hopefully one day we can kind of record and see, kind of speak to you guys about what was the process and all, because this is not your typical non-fiction book about 5 steps and frameworks and all, because we really struggled trying to do that. Then we were comparing with other books out there which they have done 10 years of research, 50,000 sample sizes and all these things, but we don't have all these things, right? So we were very how should I say, felt very vulnerable, not very sure whether this is the right way to go, until we decided to say, hey, why not we just write it like a fiction, right? A fable. So that was great, right? So then immediately everything just green light, traffic light, everything just green. So then you can just write very freely and all and so on. So for the book is out right now in all the bookstores that you know, as well as also on Amazon. So you can look out for it, and also we'll probably drop in the show notes itself the link for you to order it online as well. So okay, enough of that. So let's get on to today's letters. But before that, Seok Hian, for those who do not know you, can you please introduce a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me back here again. It's my pleasure. I really enjoy this whole podcast recording and all this. So, hi everyone. My name is Seok Hian. I'm based in Singapore. So basically, I'm now a consultant, HR consultant, coach, and also trainer for leaders and young leaders especially. I work a lot with the startups and the SME as well. So the Enneagram that Kausern talked about basically is about 9 personality type. But I think one key distinct features about Enneagram is that it tells you how your best look like. I don't think there are many tools out there actually shows you how your best look like. But it also tells you how your dark side look like as well. It gives you a nice spectrum. And the purpose of it is not to pigeonhole you, but I think the good use of it is actually, it tells you some of the cues and indicators that you can look out for when you're spiraling downwards, or what is your progress indicators and milestones that you potentially would demonstrate. So I think that is a very good tool. Maybe we can do another podcast just to talk about Enneagram.
Yeah. We should. Okay, cool. Hopefully, maybe in one of the letters here, we can also see how Enneagram can be applied.
Can be applied, yeah.
Okay, let's start off with the first letter that we received. Let me read it out. Dear Building Better Leaders, I know intellectually that leadership is about getting results through others and not doing everything myself. But emotionally, I still wrestle with letting things go. When someone on my team delivers work that's 80% there, I smile, say thank you, and then quietly spend an hour polishing it myself. I don't tell them, I just can't help it. I want things to be excellent. And I have high standards, but I am also burning out. I keep hearing that, air quotes, done is better than perfect, and air quotes again, let people grow through ownership. But what if my reputation is on the line? What if good enough isn't good enough for the expectation I'm being measured against? How do I learn to live with less than perfect, especially when my name is still on the outcome? Okay. So you want to take a stab at it? I mean, first of all, I would like to acknowledge the letter writer that I can only empathize that. See what happens is that I don't think many workplace individuals strive or to be a manager in this case, or a leader, right? It's one of those things where it's like they come in and join as an individual contributor. Then after that, because you do really well, in terms of the deliverables as an individual contributor, you do well, and they kind of say, management kind of says that that's the ceiling that you can get in terms of your salary and all. So in order for you to get a higher baseline, you need to take care of 2 people, 3 people in this case. It's almost like an automatic sort of progression. It's like, oh, okay lah, so if I'm married, then the next thing I need to get a baby lah. So it's that kind of thoughts, right? So because of that, then it's true. I can't increase my baseline. So I'll take this on. So then take on the leadership position, manager position. And however, as we all know, it doesn't come. Most companies doesn't come with training, and their bosses don't have time to train them, or maybe do not even know how to train them. So then it kind of like you figure it yourself to a certain extent. And most of the time, what they do is that they figure it themselves by using what they know, which is dealing with tasks and using the same kind of tools to deal with people. So that's why there's a lot of struggle in this case. So I can fully empathize with this person. I can understand that this person clearly was a fantastic individual contributor, probably create a lot of impact in the company, and then now being promoted to a position and kind of struggle. with that. So I acknowledge that letting go is hard for this person. Yeah. So but yeah, any thoughts about this letter writer, Seok Hian?
I would also like to acknowledge that the person is clearly very self-aware. Yeah. So, and delegation is usually the first challenge from both skill sets and mindset perspective for first-time leaders. Because delegation has a few folds to this, and I hope that from my perspective, I can help to kind of uncover the different folds and make it more manageable for this person to kind of work on.
Okay.
So I think delegation requires two things. One is the need to see that you need to actually teach. That means you already do very well, and that's why you are most times, because of that, you get promoted, right? But then how do you teach someone who couldn't figure out themselves, or doesn't have the same set of thinking mindsets and paradigm as you, to actually do a good job? That's one thing, which is a skill sets thing. And therefore, a lot of time to become managers take every opportunity to learn how to teach. Because when you learn and do yourself versus you teaching to another different individual, I think it's a very different ball game altogether. And a lot of managers struggle with delegation because they do not know how to plug their thought process out into a set of instructions, or break it down and kind of like help into building blocks so that people can reassemble the blocks and reach to the same level of outcomes as they want. Yeah. So that's a very important skills. And for the second layer of delegation is actually the mindset of how you look at success. And this is something I want to kind of present or offer to the letter writer of how do you now define success in your new role. So clearly he or she knows that he or she needs to delegate, but emotionally there is a sense of loss when this person delegates, because he or she mentioned that my reputation is on the line. So I think now the so-called the definition of reputation. Yeah. So from the letter and the way it was articulated, it seems like he or she still holds on to the definition that the reputation is on the task rather than the reputation as a manager. Yeah. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because I think first of all, the letter writer needs to also clarify with the managers like why they're being promoted in the first place. There must be a reason for that. But more importantly, to redefine, like you say, what success means, being a manager versus an individual contributor in this case, right? So individual contributor, for sure, it is about getting the task done in the best possible manner in the fastest time, right, in this case. But being a manager, now your scorecard is going to be different, right? It's not about getting tasks done. Yes, it's getting tasks done, but also you are being now measured as an enabler, right?
Yes.
So a doer versus an enabler in this case. So of course there are certain things that you still need to do, right, in terms of delegation, especially those tasks which is really difficult and also mission critical, and the team is not ready for it yet. You still have to do those. But in general, the mindset is really about enabling others, or kind of like duplicating yourself to get others to do it as well. So in other words, they need to understand that the scorecard has changed, right? So now you're going to be being measured by how you are going to be, how good are you in enabling your team to get the task done as a department, as a group in this case, rather than you yourself. So if this person understands that the stake has changed, I mean the payout is different right now, it's no longer about getting things done yourself, but learning how to delegate, learning how to enable others to do it. I think that also incentivizes the person to rethink again how it should be done in this case. So that's my thoughts about the second layer of now your reputation is how you can enable rather than how well you yourself can do it.
Yeah. And I mean, for any task, there are many things that are important, but there is usually one main thing the most important priority. So as a manager, many times is completing a task is a baseline, but how do you go about completing a task? That is the more important thing. So it's about redefining what the success metric is actually about, or what is the priority or the main thing. So in this case, if he or she delegates to a team member, then now the main thing is about how to build the person's success in completing the task and not completing a task himself or herself.
So getting back to layer one, when you mentioned about learning how to teach, that's the best way to get things done, right? So of course I have met with certain managers who they understand the concept, but they're actually very poor with teaching. It's almost like it's like how sometimes you go to a foreign country, you kind of like you get lost and you ask for help. There are two kinds of people who can one
Direct you.
who will tell you very linearly, go left, go right, go left, go left, go left, 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 right, like there, and then and that's very confusing, because what happens is if one of the turns, it is closed off, then I'm stuck, right? And the other one, which I felt was really good, the kind of person who can give good directions, is that they would put in milestones, in a sense of like, oh, okay, it's just take this road, go all the way until you see the red building, So that is very helpful, because even though certain roads are closed, but as long as I get to the red building, then at least I know what's going to be the next step, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times I think when you say to teach, it's not as simple as just teach, because they will just teach you very linearly. In this case, they say, oh, do this, right? And doesn't really tap into the creativity or the resourcefulness of the other person as well. So I'm just wondering, are there any sort of like top line tips on how to be a better teacher in this case?
I think in order to teach, you need to really reflect and trace back what are the key components or elements contributing to the conditions of the success of the task.
Okay.
So I'll give an example, like, we do a lot of PowerPoints or reporting, right? So let's say I need to do a PowerPoint and for management reporting updates on what's the status of a project. And being a project manager, I would know that, okay, this is how I think about it. These are the audience that I need to address. They are senior level. They may not need to know a lot of details or the efforts we put in, but they need to know the milestones, the status of the success, what are the key challenges and concerns we met, and therefore how we overcome through the solutions that we use. So these are the conditioning. So like concerns, progress, what are the next milestone, the next step, what are some of the contingency or solutioning that we have used so that there is learning and the key learnings and all these things. If you don't think about it, you just like the first type where literally, okay, turn left, turn right, right? So it's like, okay, then I do this, I get this data and all these things, but you don't know why you need to get those data. And you don't know what to look out for, what could be the blind spot. If you don't say all these things, then the person might just pull the data blindly and not knowing, like, what if the road is closed in this case.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, therefore, to teach better is really to learn how to break it down into and look at systems. That's why to teach is really to teach a thinking system behind. Someone might actually do the job differently from you, but then it's like, this is how you go about thinking and doing the task. So if to present a progress update for a project, then these are some of the things that I would tell my teammates to say that, hey, you need to highlight concern, you need to highlight challenges, you need to highlight the upside and the achievements we've done. You also need to highlight the learning or insights we got so far. And maybe give acknowledgement to key stakeholders, things like that. And ask for what kind of support you need for the next 3 months. Yeah. So it is about looking at the system or framework or even model, but the model doesn't need to be very complex. It is basically just made up of key elements. Yeah.
Okay, I can understand. I think it's very much like let's say from a sports analogy, and if let's say if your let's say for example football, if your role, your job is to be able to hit to kick the ball into the goal post area so that your teammate can score into it.
Yes.
I think you need to be able to give a little bit more conditions or details. For example, you just can't say that, oh, so your job is just to do that. You need to also add on to say that, okay, so that is your main role. That's your main roles and responsibility. But there are also some non-negotiable. There are also some conditions that you need to think about when you're doing that, right? So number one, you need to always keep an eye on the defender. So that's one, right? Two, you need to be able to whatever, right? All these things. So these are the, but you're not telling them exactly step by step how to do it. But it's kind of like these are your mission, and these are some of the non-negotiable. These are some of the conditions, and so on. Now let's talk about, based on all these conditions, how are you intending to be able to achieve that? So you are also allowing space for the other person to contribute as well, their thoughts on how to get there. So you're not really dictating the how, because if you're just dictating the step by step what to do, I think that will fall clearly under the area of micromanagement in this case,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
True.
Okay, I hear you. All right.
And that's a good point you brought up. In the sense, it's like, what does the acceptable or desired standard look like? A lot of young managers, they just delegate the task, but they don't highlight what is the quality they are expecting from the teammate. For example, from this letter writer, the teammate submitted 80%, and he or she wants 100%, and therefore, did he or she actually articulate what that 100% look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think with that in mind as well, so maybe the letter writer also may not necessarily know what does 100% look like.
Yes.
As well,
Then it becomes
right?
an implied expectation for disappointment.
Yeah. So I was recently coaching somebody, and interestingly, this person has very high standards. I kind of think about it. It almost reminds me of this letter writer, and this person runs a small, I would say small, quite a big department, creative department, about 30 people, and yeah, there's quite a lot of people. But recently he felt really down because he felt that, oh, I'm a failure, I can't get people doing things, the creative that goes out is not of certain standard, I got feedback from this and that, all these things. And it's very difficult because he feels that he's responsible for all 30 of them, that kind of thing, right? So that's why it's like he feels that, am I cut out for this thing? And what changed his mindset was when I asked him, I said, okay, so imagine right now everybody is performing to exactly how you're performing to be, right? What would be that one thing that they need to be really good at? What's that non-negotiable in this case? Then they said, of course, the creative go out must be of certain standard. I said, okay, let's start from there. So certain standard means what to you? And then he went on to define, right? Exactly. So, and then from there he started to see this energy come back. He's very clear about what is a good creative looks like, right? Even though it's a subjective thing, but he could just articulate it so clearly and so quickly, and so yeah. So he was just rattling on and said, oh, it needs to be this. I said, wow, okay, fantastic. When you came in to have this conversation, you were really down, but when you talk about this, you were excited. So my question to you is that, has this been communicated to the rest? Then boom, the light bulb came off. Then it says, that's okay. So imagine right now if this is the standard, and this everyone knows this is the baseline, and then you can discover what is that gap, and you find ways of how you can fill that gap up, whether it's teaching or whatever, and so on and stuff like that. And now imagine right now, how would you score your people, right? Before they know about this, then you're saying like, 5 out of 10. But now let's say, imagine not even 10 out of 10. Let's talk about even 7.5 or 8 out of 10. With this news, everyone follow this standard that you have articulated very clearly, and helping them to get there. How would you feel about this? Then he was like, whoa, I would die for the company, that kind of, so it's a good point, like what you said, I think the letter writer needs to be able to, first of all, also define what does 100% look like, what does success look like, right? And it's not, shouldn't be based on a feeling to say like, oh, when I see it, I'll know, right? It should be based on objectivity, because right now you need to be able to delegate. You can't delegate abstract feeling that you have. You need to be able to be very clear about it, so that when this letter writer says that that they only, when they are done about 80%, then I will fill up the rest, right? So they need to be able to first start off with what is 100% look like, and then if they say that this is 80%, then you be able to articulate to the team to say, then how do you intend to fill this 20% up, to help them and enable them and empower them to do that. So yeah, that's a good point. I think defining what the success look like.
Yes. So delegation, also I want to address back the emotional component of the letter writer. Delegation to a lot of young leaders tends to feel like a loss, a sense of loss. If I delegate out, and what am I going to do? How am I going to show my contribution, because then I have to give credit to my teammates as well for doing a good job, right? And if they don't do a good job, then I get double punishment of not getting the credit and have to put in a double work. So on economic calculation standpoint, it doesn't look reasonable. But actually, when I coach young leaders, a lot of times if they feel that it's a sense of loss, then I basically tell them the hard truth to say that you actually don't have better things to do. That's why you can't delegate. Because in delegation is to aim to solve a higher level problem. So if you tell me that you don't have higher, more strategic stuff to do, you just don't have better things to do, and therefore you keep on hogging, those menial tasks, or tasks that you have been there, done that, and now supposed to be done by your team.
Wow.
Yeah, so from a business commercial standpoint, as a leader, you need to start to look at, for example, if it can be done by your teammates and it is meant to be their level of task, by paying you a higher salary to do that task, it's just not making commercial sense. A business cannot be run like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So I would urge the person to really look for more strategic, more value, impactful stuff to do.
You're right. Okay. Do you think we have given enough bullet points or ammo for the letter writer to consider?
I would think so. That itself is a full day workshop.
Okay. For those who are interested in joining a full day workshop, please join nowadays. All right. Okay. So what we're telling the letter writer. So let me try to put in some action points. Right. So first thing is to understand that, to kind of like redefine really what is your new scorecard in this case. What are you going to be measured against, right? Is it going to be the completion of that task yourself, or is it about enabling the team to be able to complete the task? Of course, clearly the answer is the second one. So by understanding that right now you have a new scorecard, that also would be an indicator, or at least a motivator for you to want to strive towards getting better at that. So in this case, it's almost like high standard here is no longer about just the work itself. High standard here is how well you can able to delegate, how well you can actually enable. So that is your new high standard. So that's the first thing you think about. Second thing is also learning how to delegate, right? So that's really important. It's about learning how to teach, because there are many ways of teaching. We talked about it, right? But it's to learn how to teach a thinking system. I think that's really important, which means to actually enable or teach people how to think when they're given in a situation, because every situation is clearly not going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you kind of know what are the conditions for success, whether is it the concerns, the milestones, the progress, the support, and so on and so forth. So they would definitely know like, okay, so with this in mind, and this is my mission, then at least I know what to do. So it's to be able to enable, to teach them how to think teach them how to think in this case, right?
Yes.
So that's the kind of teaching method. And then we talk about also standards. We talk about for the letter writer to spend some time to think about, to define really what is 100%, what does success look like for this person, so that that is something which they can, the letter writer can communicate it to everyone, to say that this is what we are looking for, right? So that everyone will kind of know that whether they are at 70%, 80%, or whatever. So, but if this is not communicated clearly to them, then this person will continue to secretly, patch up the work in this case.
Yes.
But if it's but I think that is also another part, which the dark side of it, which we didn't talk about it right now, which kind of reminds me as well, is to also ask ourselves, like, is there a reason why you may want to also do those things? Kind of like, it's like the reason why you don't want to delegate out, so that you can do it, and then you can take the limelight. We don't know. Okay, so I think it's really for the letter writer to ask this so-called high standards of excellence.
The motivation behind.
Yeah, is it high standards of excellence, or maybe it's just the need to control, right? I think the question that the letter writer can ask is like, where is this coming from? Where is this
That's
need?
a good question.
Where is this coming from, right? To be able to self-reflect, to dig deeper, to say, where is this coming from? Is it because I need to be the person, the hero, or whatever? We don't know, right? So I think that also ties in with what you say about the emotional component when you become a manager, because there will be a sense of loss. All this
Yes.
while you've been the hero in this case, and now you're no longer the hero in this case, right? So, but it's a different kind of hero. So I think that needs to be able to be addressed, because if you are wanting to hang on to those things which you're good at, but your role is to be able to delegate so that you can take on more strategic problems, to solve bigger problems, to solve tougher problems in this case. But if you're not doing that because you want to hang on to tasks which you're familiar with, then I think that is also something which you need to rethink again, to
Yes.
say, like, maybe this could be a reason why I may not want to delegate, I don't know. So I think it's a question that the letter writer needs to ask themselves, where is this coming from? And to know that ultimately as a manager, you need to enable the rest to do the tasks which you have been doing all this while, so that you can tackle more strategic challenges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anything
think
to add on?
the key point is to understand the organization system, that leaders take on a higher salary role because they have higher level of responsibilities. Yeah. So therefore, if you constantly do what your team can do, then you are regressing, basically. You are working against the organization's system.
Okay. So hopefully letter writer,
Yes.
dear letter writer, you'll be able to get some pointers from there, and do drop us a line to see where this is going, whether or not it was helpful for you or not. Okay, moving on to letter number 2. Dear Building Better Leaders, since my promotion, I've noticed a strange pattern. Instead of coming to me, my new team still goes directly to my former boss for approvals and updates. All of us used to report to this boss. Some days it feels like I'm just a messenger and not the actual decision maker. I think part of the issue is cultural. There's deep respect for hierarchy and seniority here, especially when someone's been around longer. Even though the org chart has changed, people's behavior towards authority have not. I've spoken to my former boss about this. She has tried to redirect things to me when the team looks for her, but it keeps happening. I want to assert my authority without sounding insecure or disrespectful. I suspect my former boss still enjoys the attention, but I could be very wrong. How do I step into this new role when all this dynamics is happening?
Whoa, that's very hard. This is one of the hardest type of things to navigate.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
Okay, I've not worked in many countries, so the only thing which I'm familiar with, even though I worked for multinationals before, but it is still set in the Asian context to a certain extent. So, but this letter writer, the condition that this letter writer is in, seems to be a little bit more steeped in Asian or traditional cultures to a certain extent.
Yeah.
When you talk about hierarchy, and seniority is deeply rooted here in this case. But I would like to just start off to say that ultimately culture is just the context itself.
Yes,
In this case,
I agree.
right? It's just the context, and that doesn't sway away from actually what is needed for a business, right? So a business ultimately is to be able to produce something which will add value to the people or nation out there, and then in return we get some economic gains. But in the process, you are creating jobs for people as well, and then you're helping them to grow, and also these are all the hallmarks of wanting to start a business or run the business in this case, right? And not to be confused that right now, like, this culture thing itself is the thing, right? So, but I think it's just more of the context of it, the background of it, rather than it is the main thing. So that's my initial thought in this case. So it is important for then the letter writer to be able to differentiate, then to understand if that's the case, right? So ultimately, the reason why this person is being promoted, or why the company existed in the first place, is of course is still to be able to make some money, to be able to create products which add value, and all these things, right? And not to forget that is first and foremost, that is the primary objective, that is the goal, the primary strategic objective, and it's not about the so-called culture per se. But when, from knowing that that is not the main thing in this case, then it's really not about ignoring it, it's to understand it's there, but to be able to learn how to navigate it while still achieving what
Yes.
the business is set out to do. That will be my
Yeah.
initial thoughts. You would like to continue? Any thoughts to add on?
I'm fully, aligned with you on that, because the moment if we say that it's a cultural thing, then there's nothing much we can do, right? And like you say, culture is only the context. It guides us on how to navigate the degrees of change or the speed of change, but it's never the reason for change. And in fact, there's a paradox here that if they do respect seniority or authority,
Yeah.
then with the new title, the team should also respect it if it works. And therefore, clearly below that, there is this relationship thing that is going on. So there
Right.
might be not enough relationship with the team who are used to be their peers, or the relationship with the former boss seems to be too tight and too deep. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think that forms the dynamic. Yeah.
The other thing I would like to also talk about, since you talk about the topic about the relationship, right? So you're right. I never thought about it from that perspective. If really it's about titles, then clearly this person would not have this problem. But I think it's a deeper thing, right? It's about there's an inner working of relationship, and I think if you were to pull the thread about relationship in this case, then I would like to be able to talk about trust in this case, right? Because trust is the foundation of all relationships.
Yes.
And I think then the letter writer needs to be able to think about that. Okay, so if it's the lack of trust, right, then the question is that how do I build this trust?
Yes.
And I think I would like to help people to understand that trust is beyond playing trust falls. Trust is beyond buying pizza for them.
Ouch.
Yeah. Trust is beyond having a pool table for them to play. That's the thing is, I like it or not, especially I think when you are being put in the position where you used to be peers, then now you're being put in the position that you are governing, so-called taking care of them in this case. Like it or not, I think the people they are going to be silently judging you, whether or not you can do the job, whether they can trust you or not, like it or not, right? I think there's something personal there's something personal about it. I think every manager should understand that they need to be able to create an environment, or to say that you just can't go there and say that, hi, I'm your new boss, trust me. You can't. You need to be able to build this trust in this case, right? And then when I tell this to certain people, especially if they are somewhat already a seasoned manager, and then they join a new company and so on, they get offended. When I say that you have to rebuild the trust, or at least start building trust with these people, because they think that, oh, why should I already have I already cut my metal, right? I already done my tour of duty already, right? I've got 20 years under my belt and so on. Why should they should be the one, that kind of thing. So like I said, lucky or not, people would be judging you. People would be thinking whether can they trust you or not. So back to this trust thing, right? So then how can you build trust? So for a manager in this case, even though you may know them, your peers before now, they want to know that, number one, whether or not you are competent. Competent here means whether or not you can manage the situation, whether you can manage high pressure, whether you can do strategic stuff and all these things, which is
Or solve their problems.
Yeah, the technical competency of the job which is needed, whether or not you understand what the job requires. I think that is something which the letter writing needs to understand. That's the first step, competency. The second thing is also with regards to character, right? So whether or not the letter writer is do what the person say that they will do, right? The integrity of it. And the third C in this case is actually more of like 3 and 4 it's actually care. So whether or not there's care and concern for them. So I think we talked about in one of the earlier podcasts, it's about the little things that you do.
Yes.
Right. It's not just only the grand gestures, but little things. The small things, like if you understand that one of them is having a 4-year-old who's having a problem in school or in preschool, it's to be able to remember those details and say, hey, how's your daughter doing? Is she coping well in school? And all these things helps. And the last C in this case is a challenge, right? To be able to challenge them, not because you want to show that you're more powerful, but more of the very fact that you see a lot of potential in them, and hence you need to be able to sometimes stretch them to challenge them, for their growth, because it's actually for growth, not because you want to challenge for the sake of challenge. So all these 4 C's, right? Competency, character, care and concern, and challenge. Is it there? Because if you are focusing on all these things, not once or twice, but consistently doing it, intentionally doing it with clarity, doing it with empathy, and all these things, then I believe that the relationship will be tighter, or at least redefine the relationship. No longer you're just the friend, but now they can look at you and respect you as the boss in this case,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So I think that is important for the letter writer to think about when it comes to redefining their relationship with them right now. So any thoughts based on what I just said?
Yeah, I think you touch on a very key point about respect. So respect doesn't mean they need to like you. Respect is about when you bring value and they see your niche of contribution. So it's important to know what is the value that you're bringing, because if they can get the same value out of their former boss, the human beings being habitual, they will continue to do that and not seeing anything that's wrong, right? Therefore, then the letter writer needs to rethink about what is the value he or she can bring to the team, and also to the boss. Yeah, and therefore present it to both sides to really get an alignment on that. Yeah, so like, for example, last time when we worked together, before that was my first regional role when I took on Southeast Asia. Before that, I was always in a country level, like your position last time.
Yeah.
And I was always complaining about regional people, giving us more jobs, trying to impose things on us, not understanding the market. And then when I moved into a regional role, then I very shortly I realized that, oops, I think I'm doing the same thing of what I dislike about, when I was in a country. So that was what made me rethink, how can I add value to my countries? Rather than just coming from a high and mighty kind of role and say that, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that kind of thing, just to serve my agenda. So I think it's the same thought process that I'd like to urge this letter writer to think about. What is the value that you want to present to your teammates now that they can't get from their former boss? Yeah. And of course, what is the value you can offer to your former boss, who is still your boss likely right now, that, why he or she needs to delegate more to you and give you the authorized power to actually do your job. Yeah, I think that could be a line of thinking for this letter writer to ponder.
Okay. I think the other thing which I also would like to call out to the letter writer to rethink again, there's one part which the letter writer says, it's hard not to wonder, does my old boss, which is probably still the current boss, enjoys still being in the spotlight, right? I think that is something which this letter writer needs to clarify with the boss, because the letter did say that have spoken to the former boss about this and so on, but I'm not too sure whether or not spoken and whether or not the former boss, which is a lady, whether or not she understood really where you're coming from in this case, right? And not to make this kind of assumptions, because such ambiguity, or at least the kind of assumptions, will breed insecurity. I feel, in this case for the person, right? Because it's like you're telling a story to yourself which may not be necessarily true.
Correct.
And then you may go into the whole victim mode to say that, it's like, I already told her, but yet, she still wants to be able to, that kind of thing. So I think that's really important to not to get into that story that you tell yourself. If this continues to happen, I would advise the letter writer to say that, okay, hey, boss, we talked about this before, and it seems that that they still come to you and so on. I'm wondering if you're open to collaborate or figure out a way on how this will not happen. Let's look into, for example, let's look into the Monday meetings that we have, for example. So can we agree that during the Monday meetings, and when anyone want to ask anything, so instead of you jumping in, to answer it, can I suggest that to say, hey, pass it to me to answer in this case. So something like that, kind of work it out, before the actual meeting itself, and see where the boss is, I think most of the time it could be just a blind spot for this lady boss in this case.
I agree.
I don't think the lady boss will say, cannot, I will answer.
No, I like.
I think it's more like you have to earn your own trust. I don't think so, right? But it is, it is having those conversations rather than just telling stories that, I think she just liked the limelight. Oh yeah, I think she just enjoys the attention. I think that's not helpful. That is kind of like almost like a victim defeat sort of mindset. So letter writer should consider that, and not to tell stories which is not helpful to you. You need to tell stories which is helpful and not hurtful or harmful.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you, because the question itself if the answer is yes, I like the limelight, I want to still hold a relationship, how else can I, or if the boss said no, I don't like the limelight, that's not my intent, but continue to do so, I mean, it's like, so therefore asking that question is not really useful, like you say. And instead should highlight what you want the former boss to support you on, what you need her to do for you. Be very specific so that she has something to work towards, rather than tell her don't do that. Yeah. So I think that is about the way of giving constructive feedback. But I think as you talk, actually one more thing came to my mind is about the definition of real change. So how do you know that a change is pseudo, just formality, or how do you know that the real change actually happened? Is the question of whether you can go back to old practice. Yeah, whether there is still a back door that allow you to do the same old. If there is a back door, then there is no real change. So in this case, it seems like what the letter writer was experiencing is that there is a back door where people can continue to go back to the old boss. I think it's really to kind of evaluate that and see how to close the back door and yet keep the relationship. So it's not about choosing either or. I think the relationship that the former boss still wants, and it can still be very helpful, because imagine that, the letter writer some days cannot manage certain things, or there are conflicts with the team, and the former boss actually now with a relationship with your team can actually come and support you as well.
Wow, yeah.
So don't see it as either or, that only she can have the relationship or it's me, don't go into that space. And I think when it comes to levels of change, there are 4 levels of the thoroughness of change.
Okay.
The first is format, meaning that there's change of title, there's change of business titles or name cards and salary or whatever. These are formats, which is a formality part. But if there's only change of formats but there's no change of process, for example, let's say now the letter writer has to approve the leave, have to manage the resource, have to plan, certain things, there is a change of process. So like first approval goes to the letter writer. Now there's a change of process. So then people will also feel a deeper impact. The next level is actually structural. That means structurally, they really change in terms of decision making. So one thing that the letter writer can clarify with the former boss is that what decision can I now make? And you can delegate fully to me to make those decisions. What are the decisions that I still cannot make but I can influence you? You will still have the final say. I think having that clarity on the decision making will be very important. And the last one is actually stewardship. That means you sponsor or initiate change or, at certain levels. So if a change impact these 4 areas, the change will be very strong, very significant to the team members. But if the change is only formality, there's no change of process, everything is still approved by the former boss, then there is really no change.
Right. Got it. So real change happens when the last 2, right, structural and stewardship comes in.
Process, structural and stewardship, will let people know that now there is a real change. It's not just a campaigner, in other words.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Shall we close this?
Yes, I think there should be enough bullets.
Let's start off with. Okay, so what are we telling the letter writer? So these are some of the things which I captured. Please fill in if I've missed out anything. I think the first thing is to understand that there is actually somewhat I wouldn't say say the word, kind of like there's inconsistency. If the letter writer says that it is authority, they'll look at authority. That's why that's how the company works. So if that's the case, then now this letter writer is the new boss. This person now has the authority and a title, but yet why this is still happening? Then I think that's the inconsistent. Maybe the letter writer needs to rethink again, that say, hey, actually maybe it is not just the authority. There's more than that, right? And then we talk about that. What is this more than that look like? So maybe it's about the relationship, right? So it is about the relationship that the current boss or all the can report to this boss we still have with the team in this case, right? And so I think that's really important to understand that. Okay, so then now this letter writer needs to be able to craft out for him or herself how can they so-called trust the letter writer
build a
to
relationship.
build a relationship and to be able to take care of them, to be able to add value to them, and so on and so forth, right? So what kind of value you can bring. So then we talk about the different levels of trust, which you can go back and just listen to it. And ultimately, when that happens, then you will have a new respect from the team in this case. And it's also very important in order for you to set out yourself up to be this boss, this new manager in this case, where the rest of your former peers will follow you. It's also to be able to collaborate with your boss as well, right? To set it up. I think to start off with saying that that whether or not my boss enjoys the spotlight and so on is something which you need to rethink again. Maybe it's not. To be very specific on how your boss can actually help you. So rather than telling your boss to say don't do this, but more of like telling the boss to say let's figure out what to do instead, right? On how to make sure that the so-called the baton is passed down in a more in a structured and clear way in this case,
Yes.
right? And then also to think about don't think about like to think about like now there's a back door, right? In this case, so these people they may be going there. So it is learning to understand that how do I close this back door, but yet still allow the people to still have that kind of relationship with the boss, because it is going to be helpful for you. So it's not harmful. So it's not an either or thing. And to continue to also to collaborate with the boss as well, to achieve this thing called the real change, right? So what real change here? We talk about there's four aspects to it: the format, the process, the structural, as well as the stewardship. To actually kind of look more into the last three, instead that's where real change happens. So this is where you need to have that constant communication with your boss, right? To just say that, okay, so what things that that you're going to be passing to me, what things that you are not, what things you're holding on, and so on. So it's very clear the roles and responsibility of your new job in this case lah. So then I think that's kind of about it. So if you do those things, and I think you can lead more with clarity, and hopefully that you'll be able to over time build the kind of trust and respect from this team of yours lah. Anything to add on?
Nope, that's all.
Final letter for the day. Dear Building Better Leaders, I've always thought of myself as someone with a strong sense of values. I care deeply about people, I value harmony, and I try to lead with empathy. But since stepping into a leadership role, I felt this tension between who I am and who I'm expected to be. My job now requires me to make quick calls, challenge people publicly, and push back, especially in high-stake moments. But these things don't come naturally to me. Every time I do them, I feel like I'm stepping out of my own skin. I end up overthinking my tone, second-guessing my decisions, or worse, spiraling into self-doubt after meetings. People say this is what leadership takes, but I can't help wondering, does it have to come at the cost of who I am? Is this just discomfort from growth, or am I trying to wear someone else's armor? I want to show up as a strong leader, but I also want to feel congruent inside. How do I lead in a way that feels more aligned with who I am without being ineffective or seen as weak? I mean, I find it hard to be able to answer this, but clearly I can understand this is something which is with every new leader will struggle in terms of finding their own leadership identity, right? So there's always this. You read about it. There's all sorts of different kind of leaders, right? There's situational. There is dictatorial and all these things, right? So it seems to to be like, oh, if I study this kind of leader, I want to be this kind of leader. But I think it's also pigeonhole. I mean, it's good to have awareness of the different kind of leaders out there, but I think ultimately every leader should be able to find their own flavor, their own style in this case, and their own identity. So I think I'd just like to acknowledge that you're not alone, the letter writer. I think everyone will go through that because now you need to manage the expectations of your stakeholders as well on how you show up. So, and if I can elaborate on it a little bit, I think what this letter writer is struggling right now is that there's expectation in terms of that you need to be able to push back, you need to be able to think very quickly on your feet and all these things, which is not the letter writer's personality in this case, right? So he or she is looking into harmony, for example, it mentions here. But then on one end, he or she felt that the expectation is to be able to challenge people publicly. So it's like, oh, okay, so how does that work? I'm for peace, but now I need to be able to challenge people publicly, right? Then we talk about empathy, then now you have to push back, and probably I'm not too sure, but there's an implication, or at least imply that this person could be more of like a soft-spoken sort of person, but there's this expectation you need to be loud, So all these things kind of like almost like I'm not that kind of person, but it seems that I need to be that kind of leader in order for me to succeed in an organization. Hence, that's why I'm stuck. What do I do? I think that's where we can start dissecting or helping this letter writer. Any thoughts?
Yes. This is a very common situation that, like you mentioned. So yes, you're not alone, and actually it's like a metamorphosis that a young leader would have to go through.
Oh, I like that.
Because this is a process of expanding capacity. Yeah, it is not the direct answer to this letter writer is that you don't have to change who you are. You can be doing all those stuff that you actually mentioned. It's just like changing a costume, to serve a different context. So I would like to challenge actually 3 assumptions that the letter writer wrote in the letter. Is that how is care deeply not in the form of challenging someone. You can care deeply and therefore you want to challenge someone because you care enough. And how is empathy not speed? Yeah, you can think on the feet, and it's like because you actually can empathize and you pick up cues that people are not okay with that. And how is harmony not a form of pushback? Sometimes you need to say no so that you can uphold certain harmony, and pick instead of saying no to, instead of accommodating to an easy decision, you have to say no to it in order to uphold harmony. So what I want to say is that people are not stuck with situations or relationships, but most times we are stuck with our belief about the situation and those people in the relationships.
Can you elaborate? Tell me more?
Yeah, so what kept us stuck is how we see, in this case, like harmony. Harmony, if means nice, then that's not for leadership for sure.
Right.
Yeah. You need to put sometimes conflict on the table and disagreements on the table in order to achieve alignment and harmony, the true harmony that will make things work, in order to collaborate and all these things. And how is challenging someone not a form of care deeply? When you care someone's growth, you care about someone's growth, you have to constantly challenge and stretch them. Yeah, so it's really not about changing who you are most times. It's about expanding your capacity to show up differently so that you can deliver that core values that you embody. Yeah. And Enneagram, this is where Enneagram actually comes in nicely, because Enneagram is not about changing your personality type, because it's really hard to change personality type. In fact, we do not believe that in Enneagram type, your Enneagram type can change. But what you can change is the way you respond to people and situations. You can change your behaviors without changing your intent. Yeah. So if you are you empathize, you are a harmonious person, and you are someone who cares deeply, But if you do not push back, you do not protect your team, you do not kind of like speak confidently to get buy-in,
Yeah.
I think it's a lack of skills, it's not a lack of personality. Yeah. What's your thought on that? You've coached a lot of young leaders as well.
Yeah, I think I am still at awe with the word metamorphosis. Never thought of it from that perspective. I mean, it's again, I think it's very much like I don't know it's like what, but the very fact that yeah, I mean, in order for you to take on this position, it is going to be a metamorphosis, which means there's going to be, you need to allow the learning curve to come in, you need to allow pain to happen, you need to allow all these things so that it's a natural process. So you cannot, it's not to fight it in this case, right? And also what I like as well is also about the fact that the metamorphosis here means about expanding your capacity,
Yes.
right? And also I think what we talk about, what you just said just now, it's also to redefine again the definition of harmony here, or whatever that the letter writer has mentioned. Like for example, harmony here does not mean just being nice,
Yeah.
but it is really about also there's going to be an element of conflict as well, right? Because in order to maintain harmony, you need to be able to take into account different perspective, and then to be able to look at the common ground and see where that goes from. Now it's not about just being nice, right?
Yes.
So all these things I think is really helpful for the letter writer to rethink again about, like, the definition of at least what this person is telling him or herself now. Yeah, so far I think this is what I have, and what I like is the practice of Enneagram, which kind of says that, like, it's not about changing your personality, but it is about how you understanding who you are, so that you
Yes.
can come across strongly and much more powerfully, or in control of how you can respond to other people as well as the challenges and all. I think that is something which is important. So do you think that this letter writer should at least the baseline to understand who he or she is first? I'm just thinking out loud. Any thoughts about that?
In fact, I think kudos to the awareness level of this letter writer. I
Yeah.
think he or she knows who he or she is, and that is wonderful. Yeah, I don't know the age, but I think it's wonderful to know this. I want to highlight the difference between familiar and natural. So I think most times we are stuck with our familiarity. That means it's like, for me, is I always ask people, ask for help nicely. I always try to be generous and helpful, for a caring and empathetic personality. And I try to be indirect, or I don't want to impose on others. But if you're in a leadership position, this might not be a natural thing. And that is what likely the letter writer was experiencing, is that something that you're familiar with, and now in a different context or different role, it becomes not natural. Yeah, and by going through the confusion or feeling you're wearing someone else's armor, doesn't mean it's bad for you. Going out of your comfort zone or familiarity can be actually a good thing, and therefore actually I would like to encourage this letter writer to give more patience, and and empathy to himself or herself as well. Yeah, and therefore focus on learning the skills to kind of like challenge in a respectful manner, in a caring manner, pushing back and saying no to protect the prioritization or priorities of the team, and how to build harmony for collaboration where there is creative tension at play. Yeah.
Okay. I think it is important for the letter writer to be able to also, so I think to understand him or herself much better. When I talk about, like, probably do a personality test or something, to find out a bit more. But I think also to identify what are the values. I mean, to have a baseline. What are his or her values, right? So, like for example, if his or her values is to be able to, it's about growth, for example, right? For example, growth is important to me, for example, right? And when conflict comes in a situation, or when there's so-called seemingly there's no harmony in this case, but if growth is the one which is anchoring this person, then this person can ask the question to say like, okay, understanding that growth is important, but now there seems to be a conflict and so on. How can conflict be able to, I can leverage on this conflict for growth in this case, right? But if you do not have these anchors, these values in this case, then everything will come across as a bit more automatic in this case. It's like, I don't feel, it's not comfortable, so I don't do it in this case, right? And everything, they falls into this whole knee-jerk reaction rather than like intentionally to say that, okay, these are my values, this is what I believe in, so these are my so-called new filters. So anything which comes and challenge me in those areas, I ask myself with these filters to say, okay, so is this going to be helpful, is it going to be harmful, and how should I respond to it in this case? And like all things, when you are grounded, when you're very sure of yourself, of what you represent, then the picture I have is like you are the lighthouse in a storm in this case, very strong, standing there in this case, not stubborn in this case, but at least you're certain of who you are, while the storms hits through in this case. But not only that, you are also shining a light to other boats out there who kind of like feel lost and so on. So you're also shining them, giving them safety as well. So I think it's important to know who you are for this letter writer, and so that, because all these things that comes, it will come, right? All these seemingly disruptions, but if you were to look at it with a new lens, to say that, okay, then how can this be helpful for me, right? How can this add value, or how can my values be able to turn this situation into something which will be helpful? I think clearly then this person will grow, will metamorphosize into a beautiful butterfly in this case, right?
Yes.
So that's my thoughts.
True.
Yeah.
So it's about, I think what you said is to keep the intent. That means the why don't change. Like, you care, you empathize, the why don't change, but I think the method change, or the outcome, or the set of behavior or range, you change that. So the impression, the intent don't change, but the impression you create, you are flexible enough to actually adapt. I think that's important. Because ultimately, I mean, leadership is complex. We are not saying that it's easy, right? Like you say, there's so many different types of leadership, servant leadership, whatever, authoritative and directive. So I think it's about how can you show up in different styles to suit different needs, and without losing who you are, and still stay true to who you are as a person. That's an important point.
Not plugging in the book.
We did cover a lot about it.
I know. But I think it all boils down to why we wrote that book, right? I mean, because we felt that there was a gap in terms of how leaders are showing up in a very automatic way, in a very knee-jerk way, right? And they don't think about the consequences. They don't think about how their actions would affect other people. They don't think about all these things, right? So ultimately, when these things, or consequently, when someone don't go through that, then sometimes it will be a case of toothpaste out of a tube. Say certain things which is hurtful and it's not helpful in this case, right? So and leadership, you talked about it just now a little bit. Leadership is actually not natural to a certain extent. It is something which you have to work on. It's something there's going to be a lot of intention, there's going to be a lot of things that you need to think about it. In this case, what is going to be the guide? What are you thinking about? So the guide is ultimately is how you make the other person on the other side of the table feel.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, right? Is how would you make them feel? You may not necessarily agree to all the things that the person is saying, but what happens is that you are respecting the person by giving them space to be able to understand them, to be able to explain where they're coming from. Again, I'm not saying that you need to fully agree what the person says, but you're giving them as a human being to say, okay, help me to understand where this is coming from, right?
Yes.
So then from then onwards to work on or to coach or find a solution, and all these things, it is not natural, because we are shaped to be able to problem solve, give answers quickly, and all these things, right? But now you've got people under your care. It's no longer just barking orders in this case, right? Hence, that's why I think we wrote this book and titled it "Leadership is not automatic." You have to be very intentional about a lot of things. Why? Because we want to make sure that the other person at the end will feel good about that decision, or at least the person understands where you're coming from in this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
I think
whether or
we're
not
good.
we went off topic a bit, but okay, let's go back to the letter writer itself. So I think the letter writer, what we're telling the letter writer is that we acknowledge that there seems to be this person is finding their own leadership identity. There's an incongruence with who they are as a person, as well as also what is expected for the job in this case. And what we are suggesting first is that, hey, first of all, understand that you do not have to change who you are, your personality in this case, but it's about how then you respond to situations, to people, challenges all around you, right? So that process itself is a metamorphosis process. It's about expanding your capacity, right? So then what do you do, right? So to kind of like then start to understand a bit more about really deeper of really who you are, right? Understanding what your values, take a personality test, enneagram, and all to understand what stresses you, how are you behaving when you're at your best. So that will be your new baseline. So if you understand who you are, understand what is your OS, your operating system in this case, then what happens is that all these words that you have before, like things like harmony, then you can kind of like challenge your understanding again about what harmony here means.
Yeah, create a new meaning to it.
A new meaning to it, yeah. Because if your value is about growth, and harmony here can actually include aspects of conflict, because it is for the purpose of growth in this case. Yeah, so I think that is important. And I think lastly to conclude, it's also to allow time for you to go through this metamorphosis process. There's always going to be a learning curve to understand that, and not to rush it time, and to be compassionate with yourself, that it is a journey, that you're actually going through this, because right now you're expanding your capacity. All this while you have been silkworm, is it what it is? Right? And it's going to be a very painful process for you to break out of that
Cocoon.
Clearly I need to revisit again this analogy, but yes, so there's going to be a painful process, and to understand that it is necessary, because why it's necessary, because we have always been very automatic in how we do things, but now you are a leader, you are tasked to take care of people, you're tasked to be able to achieve results for the company, and no longer you can just use knee-jerk reactions to achieve all these things. So you have to really sit back, rethink, understand the situation, understand the capacity, look at every angle, multi-dimension in this case, before you make any sort of decisions. Why? Because when you help people to make them feel that they are of value, they can contribute in this case, I think over time, also based on my own experience, they will take a bullet for you. in this case,
Yeah.
because you have helped them, you've added value to them.
True. Yep.
Okay,
Great.
are we good?
Yes.
All right. So that's the end of today's episode. So we covered 3 letters. And if you have followed us up to this timeline, we really appreciate you to sit
Yes.
through everything and to listen to every one of it. And hopefully you found value in this. And once again, if you find that this is helpful for you, please engage with this content, like, comment, and share, so that more people which needs to hear this will be able to hear it and be able to listen or watch it, whatever, right? Which will help them. So with that, thank you very much, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, Seok.
Thank you, Kausern, and thank you everyone for staying with us, and hope you continue your learning and growing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Building Better Leaders with Kausern Hill podcast is the advice column for leaders today. Produced and edited by me, Susan Yong. Got a leadership challenge at work? Send us a letter today. More information in the description box.